the people that we identify that are truly successful are those people that have a little piece of grit. So it's like the idea. It's corny, but
It's a little play on you piece of shit too.
yeah,
I think you mentioned, but
it's
we love that.
I'll fit right in. I've been called a piece of shit. We all have by some incredibly successful people.
yeah,
And that's really what it's about. We've
Yeah.
all been there, and here's how we talk about it.
yeah.
So we'll start off. Tell us about yourself, your name. What do you do? Let's start there.
Tim Chu, Gemini, recent transplant to Naples, Florida, born and bred in the Northeast, New Jersey.
There you go. What part? I got to
Southern New Jersey,
Ah.
which is a major distinction, right?
It is.
Very unlike North Jersey, where North Jersey is in the shadow of New York City, very urban, very
Mhm.
concrete. Where I grew up is farmland,
Mm-hmm.
south of Philadelphia. So, yeah, Philadelphia market, about a half hour from Philadelphia.
Very
Over
cool.
the bridge. Loved it. I went to school in South Florida. Lived in Southeast Florida for a number of years, then moved back for 16, 17 years and moved to Naples almost 2 years ago.
What was the motivation to move to Naples?
During COVID, New Jersey probably had COVID about as bad as anywhere in the country. It was a real lockdown and started finding different places to kind of escape to. So I spent some time in California, spent some time in Southeast Florida. And then my friend Greg Dodge spent a lot of time here in Naples, Florida, and he kind of suggested as a place to escape. And we started spending time here and kind of sort of fell in love with it, just the openness of it and the lifestyle here and the people. And then there was a business opportunity presented itself, and that was kind of like the last straw. So we relocated and haven't regretted it for a moment. Love it. Couldn't be any happier. It's a very special place.
It really is.
So talk to me about your entrepreneurial journey. Where did it start? Obviously, you have the opportunity with Greg now with Naples Lifestyle Magazine, but I think it's interesting because we talk about it. We started our entrepreneurial career, him 2 years ago, me 4 years ago, and you know, it's always interesting to find how people got there, whether it was starting in corporate and going to starting your own company, or just somebody like me just at some point in college being like, I don't think I want to do the whole working for people thing.
Balls to the
So
wall, just give it a try.
yeah, like,
right?
what was your story?
Well, you guys will find this hard to believe given the age you grew up in. But I worked at a telecommunications company. It was a great job, mid-sized company, about 150 employees. I guess small business. Great mentor and first boss to have. And we were a telecommunications company that provided long distance services. Do you guys even know what long distance means?
I mean, I guess, but explain it to us.
Well, businesses used to have like actual real telephones they had to dial, and if you called outside the country, you paid a different rate than a domestic phone call. So I was in charge of. Well, I worked in the billing department, and one of the corporate initiatives, one of the company initiatives, was the boss goes, "Hey, I think it might make sense if we accepted credit cards as a form of payment." Now, again, this probably seems crazy to you guys because everybody takes credit cards now, but back then, this is exactly 20 years ago. Not every business took credit cards, right? So it was my job to find out how you go about taking credit cards. So I interviewed a bunch of companies that did credit card processing, and they're explaining the business to me. They're like, well, you know, we kind of sit in the middle between the businesses and the banks, and we conduct these transactions, and we get a little piece of it. It sounded really cool, and I was like, man, I go, so these guys don't really do anything. They just kind of sit in the middle, and they sit in the middle between the business and the consumer, and they get a piece of every sale. And so during the process of interviewing and selecting the provider, I kind of was like, this is a really cool business. And I started researching it more and more. And I called a very dear friend of mine back in New Jersey, who he and I had been talking about trying to figure out a business to do together. I kind of wanted to move, at the time I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and I wanted to move back to New Jersey for my family, as my friends. I was out of college for 4 years. I was kind of over Florida a little bit. And I wanted to move back, but I wanted to have, something to do. So I called him. I said, I think I have an idea for what we can do. And he goes, what is it? I go, these credit card processing people don't seem to do much, but they make a lot of money. And he was like, all right, I'm in. And it was really that simple. And that was exactly 20 years ago in August. It'll be 20 years ago since I got my last paycheck.
Wow.
Something I'm kind of proud of.
That's
That is awesome.
Yeah, we started a credit card processing company in Southern New Jersey, and it grew to become a real player in the Northeast. And very lucky, right place, right time. Again, you guys probably can't believe it, but there was actually, the business was calling on, businesses and retail places saying, hey, would you be interested in accepting credit cards as a form of payment? And the way that works is you get a very small amount. Like it's less than 1%. You get about half of 1% of all the sales. But at our peak, we were doing almost $1 billion a year. So it adds up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that business was great, and I still work in that business to an extent. I'm a consultant for a larger company. My company got bought by a company who got bought by a company who got bought by a company. I'm sure you guys know all about consolidation, and
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
that's kind of the norm now, right? That's kind
It
of everybody's
is.
goal is you figure something out, try to get it going long enough that private equity comes knocking or a larger competitor. So I was
Mhm.
very lucky. I had a couple good exits. Um, have stayed involved as more like a consultant for a company called Payrock. Shout out to Payrock, Chicago, Illinois.
Mhm.
A lot of Payrock people down here in Southwest Florida. But yeah, so I still work there as a consultant. And yeah, I've had an opportunity to invest in a couple other things, some real estate stuff, and then Naples City Lifestyle Naples
Mhm.
magazine. That opportunity presented itself to me, and my partner Greg is a dear friend of mine, and he had a vision for what he thought he could turn it into. I do tell this story a lot, though. I get a phone call October 2 years ago. I don't know what I was doing. I see it's Greg, so I'm happy to answer. I say, "Hey, bud, how you doing?" And he goes, "You want to buy a magazine in Naples, Florida?" I said, "I don't think so." But then he shared his vision and kind of described what he thought it could be, and it's been an incredible ride. Been about 2 years or so, and from what we bought, which was a 22-page basically pamphlet, to what it's turned into has been really awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting because from a media perspective, magazine, you don't see that like Greg was just talking about earlier. It's like it's usually the thing that just goes into the trash can. Like, you know what I mean? We get magazines in, and it's just like whoop,
New
right out.
generation, yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
just
what
like
that's for. Yeah.
but you guys have taken what I think is becoming more and more popular since COVID, which is in-person events.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you've really gone hard on building an in-person community where people feel like they're a part of something. Where did that come from? Where did the idea
Well,
of
I don't want
like,
to speak for Greg, but I think it came from. So we both spent a lot of time in Philadelphia. Greg built his restaurant business in Philadelphia. Eventually, my company's headquartered moved to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is one of those great examples of a really big small town, right?
Mhm.
2.5 million people, but there's a very vibrant kind of like cool kids network in Center City, right? And there's a couple magazine operators in Philly that would have these fantastic parties,
Mhm.
monthly or quarterly. And when Greg and I got here, when Greg got here, I think he kind of identified that was kind of missing, right? There was no unifying
hmm,
force, right? There was
Mhm.
no kind of central hub for people to get together, and we got lucky, right? We got lucky in the fact that no one was already doing it, which was kind of surprising. But Naples is kind of in transition, right? Naples is kind of transitioning from your grandfather's town to maybe for you guys, maybe your parents' town, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
getting younger,
Mhm.
and there's more of a need to. So instead of like being a final destination for people, now it's a place where people come and grow,
Mhm.
right? Like,
yes.
Absolutely.
yeah, we've identified, I would say, 70% of our audience, specifically with the in-person events, are entrepreneurs, right? Like people
Mhm.
come here, they don't work. There's not a ton of large employers. If you don't work for Arthrex or a hospital system, you're kind of on your own, right? You better
Very
figure it out.
true.
You better be a realtor. You better be a designer. You better do
Mhm.
something creative, and you better be your own boss, right? So
Mhm.
what do those people need? They need networking events, right? They
Mhm.
need to meet other people. They need to meet fellow entrepreneurs or customers, even,
Mhm.
right? So thank goodness that itch hadn't been scratched,
Mhm.
And when Greg kind of introduced the concept, people were like, "Yes, please, can we have
Mm,
some more?"
Hmm.
And yeah, I think what's really cool is we kind of have that intersection of yeah, people are there to network and do some business, but it's also fun, right?
Mhm.
And this is still a town where people like to get dressed up, right? They don't mind having a cocktail at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mhm.
So it really is a perfect fit. I mean, I've been on most of I think I've been in every market in the country, right? And I think Naples is very unique in that way.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Definitely a lot of Southern California vibes here. Like I always feel like people ask me with Naples, like I feel like this is like Southern California 30 years ago.
I would say it's like what I hope it to be is a Hermosa Beach. We were
Yeah,
literally just talking about Hermosa. Like
yeah.
I
Mhm.
love the first time to LA last year around November,
Mhm.
and like I thought LA was just LA, and then I went to Hermosa Beach. I went to
Manhattan Beach.
Manhattan
Mm.
Beach, and I also went to Venice. So I got to see the whole spectrum, and I was like, Hermosa, that is what I see Naples being. My thought is because there isn't large employers, do you see it getting young? Or do you not think that that's a
Yeah,
possibility?
take a ride out east. It's coming. I live on Vanderbilt Beach Boulevard, which is a major connector east and west, and the traffic on that in Immokalee is just getting out of control. So I do think it's going to keep getting younger, right? Who wouldn't want to be a part of this, right? And what's happening is it's not rocket science, right? They're building more and more affordable housing options the farther east you go. So for all of the positive comparisons we can make to Southern California, I think a lot of the negative comparisons are coming too. Traffic,
unfortunately,
bad.
Yeah.
that's the price you pay. Yeah, but don't get it twisted. Don't believe the hype on California. California is still pretty awesome.
Well, when you go there, and like whenever I'm there, I'm like, oh, this is why you tax the fucking shit out of people.
I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. That's the problem, honestly. So we were thinking about. You guys asked me why we ended up here. So we kind of had it narrowed down to a couple different places. And California was on the list, but ultimately it came down to. I'm not very political, but it came down to politics and mostly taxes. So New Jersey has a 9% state income tax. I think California is 12, and Florida is 0. Right. So my wife and I still work. So for us to keep the extra 10% of our money was kind of the determining factor.
That's the shit.
But again, California is awesome. These people that are shitting on California right now, I think, are crazy. It's still without question the most beautiful state.
It is.
Maybe
You combine mountain ranges with beach, you get the best. Because the second state that I love more than I love Florida is Colorado. And then the third on the list is California, because you get the best of both worlds. And I mean, honestly, California, I didn't get the California, like, again, I didn't go to the places in LA where people are talking about the homeless problem and all this other stuff. I didn't see any of that. So I can't say.
Why would you? Right? I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what I think too. It's like, it's the stigma around it. People look at Naples, Florida, and they're like, oh, old people, it's retirees. Like, you're going to go there and that's where your grandma lives. And then you get here and it's like, no, we're in this beautiful bubble. It is safe. It is gorgeous. There's opportunity everywhere. It's a great place to build a business, put your head down and work.
Bubble's the word.
But you don't know it unless you get here, you know?
I hate to leave the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I stay here for long stretches, unfortunately I travel a lot, but when I'm here for nice long stretches, like 4, 6, 8 weeks, and then I leave, it really is like, wow, this is what the rest of the world is dealing with. I miss my bubble. This is all kidding aside. It gets hard for us to pick places to travel to, because there's really nowhere I want to. There's really nowhere I want to go. Because I've always kind of hated leaving my stuff. I'm kind of like I like my stuff. I like kind of routine person.
Yep.
I like being home. So I was always like a somewhat reluctant traveler to begin with, and now when it requires leaving here, wherever we go, I'm like, oh, this is it. Couldn't do this at home.
Yeah, you're gonna go travel to a beach. It's like 20 minutes away.
It's 5 minutes from my house. But, no, it's a very special place. But my point was, California is still pretty awesome, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if that pendulum swings back the other way and they get their shit together in the next few. People forget. I mean, California has this crazy liberal stigma, but like, Ronald Reagan was from California. Richard Nixon was from California, right? Their politics go back and forth.
Tucker Carlson is from California.
Yeah, there's still a lot of opportunity there. It's still pretty awesome.
But I mean, right now we're living in the best state.
I gotta tell you, objectively, I don't know if there's anywhere better to live.
I don't think so.
I'm in that boat.
I mean, I think Naples specifically. So I hope people continue to think this is just full of old people and it sucks, so it stops them from moving here. So anyone listening, don't come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good on the traffic. We got everyone we need.
Yeah, we're good.
But that's the issue. I was listening to somebody talk about the developments that go on in Tampa, and the issue with Naples is it was not intended to be a big city. Like I met the founder of FGCU, and he was talking about like FGCU. I think is a direct relationship. I talked to the founder of the entrepreneurship school at FGCU, and she said the lifeblood of what will become Naples and Fort Myers starts in the university. But when the founder of FGCU and I were talking, he was like, this was supposed to be a community college. Nobody was supposed to know about this spot. Nobody was really like, it was supposed to be for the people that were in like right below Tampa, all the way to where
Marco, I guess.
Yeah, like Marco, like that's where these were. It was supposed to be a community college, and it's turned into one of the fastest growing universities in the country. It has the most beautiful dormitories. It just completely blew the expectations out of the water. I think we're having the same thing in Naples. The only issue I see is I don't know that we have the infrastructure to support it. Truthfully, I don't know what that looks like.
I'm not a city planner,
Yeah.
but I of course have the same concerns that you do.
Yeah.
I see the cars, and then again, I see what they're building, and I can't, 1 + 1 seems to equal 5. But listen, there's a lot of smart people, and there's opportunity, and they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They say Naples wasn't built to have a lot of people, but then why does 41 have 6 lanes? Why does Immokalee have 6 lanes? Like somebody knew what was coming, right?
Yeah.
And I know it was a dirt road, 40 years ago. People love, you meet that rare person born here, and they tell you the story. Fifth Avenue used to be made out of seashells. So I say that because obviously they figured out ways to accommodate the influx, and as long as there's money, right? As long as there's opportunity for people, they'll figure it out. It's a great problem to have, right? It's a cool problem to have, to say, oh, so many people want to live where I live, and I'll trust the engineers on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when we run in North Naples, we like to run all the time, but in North Naples, we run by the airport, and we're like, there's PJs going out every 10 minutes, and we're like, what is this spot that we're in? Like, are people just coming in here doing business and getting out? It's so accessible. Like, it's unbelievable what people don't see here.
The shit that blew my mind was is the richest city per capita, like the highest population of millionaires in the city of Naples. So it's like we were talking about before, seeing the Ferraris and all these cars that, like, if I saw in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I came from, I would have been like, holy shit, do you see that fucking
picture of
car?
it.
That was sick. Now, if I go for a run from here down to Barnes & Noble, I'm probably going to see 30 of these styles of cars. I'm interested, when did you in your business know it was time to sell and get out? Because in credit card processing, I can imagine it wasn't something that you're like, man, I love credit cards.
That's interesting. It is kind of a boring business. It's like something no one thinks about. You don't see it, but it's very important. You know? The ability for consumers to spend money they don't have is the backbone of the American economy.
I love that.
It's a great quote,
It's
right?
great,
But it's true.
Yeah, it is.
So think about in your own life. If you only spent the money you actually had in your pocket, right? Like, what would that do? You wouldn't go on vacation. Like all the things we use our credit cards for. And then debit cards. Again, you guys probably can't believe this because it seems foreign to you, but there was a time where debit cards weren't a thing. The concept of a debit card is only about 17, 18 years old. Right? So credit cards used to kind of be the purview of rich people, right? American Express, Diners Club, which you guys probably never heard of. And there was Visa and MasterCard. And then Discover was launched about 25 years ago. But what that meant was, prior to a debit card, you had to have a lot of cash on you. Like if you were going out to dinner on a Saturday night, you had to have a couple $100 on you. And if not, you had to go to an ATM machine, and that was a real pain in the ass, right? So having that little piece of plastic in your pocket made it easier to spend money. Now, time will tell. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because the level of household debt right now in this country is really startling.
Yeah.
It's really, really troubling. Most Americans spend about 115% of what they make.
That's why
Not
I didn't
crazy.
know that stat.
That's so again, it's good because it drives growth, right? That's the tidal wave the economy has been riding for the last 20 years. 20 more.
There's a point that you said to me multiple times that I think is interesting for this, is what the delta of if that changes even by 5%.
Oh yeah, so it's one of these things. So if consumers ever sober up and get responsible, it would crash the economy.
Interesting.
So there's this really weird marriage between irresponsibility and a vibrant economy. Right? If people, just look back, right? Like, I'm sure you guys could pull charts if you want to, or graphs. If you look at economic growth, like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then 90s, it starts to kind of peak a little bit. And access to credit is the major driver of that. And it's like, it's giving the alcoholic like a free bar tab, right? Like, I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it, right? Like, we spend more than we probably should. So, I'm sorry, answer your question. So, you said it's a boring business, and it is. But what I got very passionate about is the technology that surrounds that business. So we started off just as a transaction company, which meant we took the money from point A and moved to point B. But then a lot of technology is around the transaction, right? So you guys, when you go to restaurants, those point of sale systems, and computers, the waitresses put the orders in on stuff. So we developed that kind of technology. So we eventually started putting the technology in that, because that technology is adjacent to the transaction, right? Same thing with like hotels. When you check into a hotel, there's that cool like thing you do it yourself. again, you guys can't remember. That was a very like cumbersome manual process as recently as 15 years ago. So I became, e-commerce. So I was very fortunate at the time we started our business. This was 2004. The internet was still kind of like figuring itself out. You know, there was the original bubble that burst, and then this was like internet 2.0, and normal people were trying to figure out how to buy and sell things online. And that created a lot of opportunity for us. You know, again, this is hard for you guys to imagine, but there was a time where there was no internet. You couldn't just buy whatever you wanted to online. And that was fun. And the best part, so my job was kind of boring, but the best part was I got to work with a lot of really interesting people, right? Like I was able to help out restaurateurs, you know, e-commerce pioneers, hoteliers, retail businesses that grew really big. So it was nice to work with some really interesting people and help them in the way that we could. So again, sorry, super long-winded answer. You asked when it was a good idea. I like talking about this. It wasn't my idea. I didn't really want to sell. So I'm a cautionary tale. The reason I ended up ultimately selling my business wasn't because I woke up one morning and said, I want to sell. I actually wanted access to more capital because all of these opportunities in technology were very expensive. Especially, again, this is probably 8 years ago. Domestic developers were really expensive, like software developers. And we wanted to keep building these software products, like these point of sale technologies, e-commerce technologies. Mobile payments was just kind of sort of becoming a thing. And we were doing very well. But again, much like consumers, businesses often want to spend more than they have, right? So you need access to capital markets. So I reached out to some private equity firms in New York City because that's what private equity is supposed to do. They're supposed to be credit cards for businesses, right? So I ended up making a deal and taking an investment from a private equity firm that just went really sideways. So I'm sure you've heard those stories before. For every great private equity story, you know, like an Uber, you know, or Facebook, you know, there's 100 bad stories. And I don't want to say anything bad about the industry in general, but those guys can be tough. You know, they play for keeps. And that was a not awesome experience. So that was actually what ultimately led to my exit in that business. It wasn't super friendly and sweet. It ended up in court and it was very messy. So if we are talking to entrepreneurs out there, if that's our audience, just be mindful. You know, your eyes can get really big sometimes, and be careful how much of your soul you're willing to sell for access to capital.
It's a great point.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That is something in our business. I am just because of the way that I was raised in like a Ramsey household because my mom was a very like cautionary tale where
that guy Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. So
You're supposed to wear the same jeans for 38 years.
Basically. But what she didn't what she allowed me to understand was if you don't have the money, you have to create it in the marketplace. But what we're in the situation of kind of parlaying that into the entrepreneurial journey, access to cash flow, like introducing new services to, like, we're an agency. So like we provide services. We can add 4, 5, 6, 10 services, but that is not going to make us better as a organization. We're just opening up more cash flow, more to our top line. But where does that end up on our bottom line? Because we're not great at these services. We're adding on complexities from a back-end operational perspective. And I think most entrepreneurs, at least the ones that we're talking to, 17 to 30, they are in the phase of they want to trade anything for increase on their top line or more money in their pocket. And they never realize that they're selling parts of themselves and parts of their company that it seems kind of like easy to do in the initial stages, and then you're not paying for that until a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line.
Well, to that end, again, if I could offer any advice, stick to what you're actually good at, right? Because it's sexy to expanding. It's exciting to grow your business, to offer these things, because you get bored. Right? Like any core competency, once you get really good at something, it kind of becomes boring. And you convince yourself, well, if I'm good at this thing, listen, the fact that you're good at one thing, you beat the odds, man. Like most people suck at everything. Like think about the people you know. You walk around, now Naples is a bad example. Walk around anywhere else, you look around, most people are losers, right? So the fact that you caught a tiger by the tail once, like consider yourself super lucky. And again, it's not fun, but just continue to be really good at whatever it is you're good at, because every time you try to add something else on, you're taking away from the thing you're good at, and the odds are you're not going to be very good at the next thing.
Well said.
So again, stick to your core competency. And again, if you have the wherewithal, if you have if you have the backbone, resist the temptation of taking partners or outside capital.
That was another thing that I recognized where I'd done a deal before. I've listened to the Founders podcast. It's a podcast that I'm obsessed with, and it talks about the idea of control, and that like in order to feel it's very easy to give up control in your company, where when you are trying to get outside capital or you are trying to get these things, very quickly you go from, oh, I'm running this small business by myself to now I have a boss. And it doesn't look the same, it doesn't act the same, but you do have a boss. If it is somebody else's money in that, you, believe it or not, they're pretty much the sole controller of what you're doing, how you're doing. If you would go and look at your career and you would say, I want, in the current market that we're in, how would you do it? How would you build? Because by the sounds of it, opportunity. You found where the opportunity was and you went towards it. So how would you do that now? Where do you think the opportunity lies now?
Small markets. I think people overlook small markets, and I would consider Naples a small market, Carter County. People always think whatever your business is, if you're selling, widgets, I'll go to Miami. That's where all the people are. That's where all the money is, but the problem is there's 35 other guys selling widgets there. So the advice I would give is find an underserviced market. And again, it's not going to be the coolest place to live. It's not going to be the sexiest market. So with my business specifically, we started in a very small town in sleepy southern New Jersey. Wasn't cool, wasn't sexy. No one ever heard of it. Philadelphia was 30 miles away. New York City was 90 miles away, the biggest market in the world. Of course, would have been cooler to have my office in New York City? I guess so, but I would have been competing against Bank of America. You ever heard of them? So I liked my odds competing against no one. In can I swear on here, like buttfuck New Jersey? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was in the middle of nowhere, but that was a positive. So not sexy, but I think there's more opportunity in super small markets for whatever you do. Isn't it? I'd rather be the biggest realtor in XYZ Oklahoma than one of the 833 realtors here in Naples, right? It's just,
Great point. Yeah.
because people start to think of you as the guy in that space, or as the woman in that space, the person in that space. And that's what we were. We were the credit card processing company. If you were opening a new business, if you required that service, there was no one else on your radar. Where again, if I was in Philadelphia, eventually we moved to Philadelphia because we became a regional company, but that was 10 years down the road.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, our initial success was getting really good at one thing that no one else was doing in a part of the world where no one else wanted to do it.
And it's so funny that you say that, thinking about what we do. That's exactly it. There's so many times, because we're content, and I look at content as that new world. It's the .com bubble. It's like we're in this new world where all of a sudden attention is oil, and it's never been easier to create attention. We've never, you have single person filmmakers now. You have, they talked about it. If George Lucas had the skills or the technology that we have now, he could have done Star Wars with just himself. And that, we've never been in a world where that's the reality. So finding that, what I always find myself doing is being like, I'm in Naples. We're in this market. There's days where I'm like, this is the best market on earth. I love it. I love it. And then there's days where I'm like, man, I wish we were in Miami or Fort Lauderdale. Man, I wish we were in Tampa. Man, it would be so much easier. Man, I hate the fact that I have to teach people what we do. You know what I mean? Because there's a learning curve, because nobody, just we're going to sit in 10 years from now and be like, it's going to sound trivial to be like, oh yeah, you have people weren't posting on social media to grow their business at the time. You know what I mean? But that's the world that we're in. So it's honestly so validating to hear your story, because it is a cautionary tale.
Listen, consider yourselves very lucky. If you have to explain what you do for a living, it's a good thing. Everybody knows what a plumber is. You want to be a plumber, right? This means you're a little ahead of the curve. Not completely, because, the world we live in.
Yeah.
But the fact that I won't be able to clearly explain to my mom what I did this morning is a good thing. So consider that a privilege.
Yeah.
I used to always say that. So again, you know, it seems very easy and easily understandable for you guys now. But again, when I started that business, people still didn't understand what e-commerce was. They didn't really understand what that a computer could replace. Do you guys even know what a cash register is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that was in 99% of retail environments.
Yeah.
Like even like Walmart, like big, like the largest retailers were using jing.
Mhm.
And when you started saying like, no, a computer can kind of do that and control your inventory too, and you don't have to count. People would count things on the shelves.
Mhm.
And I'm not that old. Like this is 20 years ago, 17 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Like, so people's eyes would glaze over, especially my relatives. Like, if you called my mother right now and said, "What has he done for?" I don't know. I think he's a magazine now in Florida. Like
She would only know
that
that
she
part.
understands, right? But something with money. I don't know, something money. Oh, this is a true story. My relatives would call me. They thought I issued credit cards. They thought you could call me to get a credit card. I would have like ne'er-do-well relatives coming out of the woodwork going, "Hey, I heard you have a credit card company.
Like you're a
Can
dealer.
I get one, man?
Get some credit.
You're dealer.
No, that's not what we do." But my point is, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're in this market, again, if I may, your goal should just become the biggest podcast in Naples instead of being the 1,333rd biggest podcast in Miami. Right? Like you guys have a chance to get like, you know, aside from losers like me and Greg, like you can get a Rocky Patel to come on here. You get the guy from Arthur X because you're the only game in town, right? This is an awesome studio. Like just focus on being the best here. And again, I think this is where the market helps you too. The fact that it's a bunch of old geezers like me who don't fully understand this stuff, who would never take it upon myself. Like, if you're in a younger market, people will want to compete. They'll come here one time, they'll look around and go, "Well, fuck these guys, I can do this." Right? Young people have that kind of energy and they have that kind of like ambition. You don't have to worry about that, right? This is a market that's people in a different part of their career who would be happier just to work with you guys than to try to reinvent you.
Wow. You know what? This is the same example of we were talking about in a podcast earlier today. Love your situation and find you have such an interesting perspective that I don't get enough from other people. It's this idea of be comfortable in your skin, be comfortable in the environment that you're in, and stop looking outside of what you're currently doing for the opportunity. Just look right in front of you. And I think what happens, at least for myself, is that boredom that you talk about, that feeling of like, oh, I'm not the guy, you know, I'm not a shark swimming in Miami. It's like, well, no, in order to do that, you have to be the man here for 10 years. You know what I mean? You have to build the track record. And it's something that I never really saw until, honestly, this conversation, the value in playing in a small market and dominating a small
To be
market.
very frank too, it goes to goal setting. Well, first of all, there's an old saying that I'm very, very, very fond of is comparison is the thief of joy. Don't waste your time comparing yourself to other people and do proper goal setting. So you, again, not to critique, but you said, well, to become the biggest dog in Miami in 10 years, why is that the goal? Right? Like, I watch a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of business stuff. It's fucking retarded. Like if you're not 10X, if you're not a billionaire, listen, I'm not a billionaire, but I've had a fantastic life. I was never the biggest credit card processing company. I never made it to New York City. Who cares? Be realistic in your expectations. The steps are, can we make a living at this? Right? Can my living be a little better? Can I be comfortable? And be realistic, because if not, you're going to spend your whole time being disappointed in yourself.
Wow.
You know, so like, don't be the guy who makes $1 million in a year and then, you know, spends all of his time being pissed off because somebody else made 10 million. And that's something living in Naples should like provide an example of. So I never knew how poor I was till I moved here. If you spend all your time trying to be the biggest, it's impossible because there are billionaires that live here.
Yeah.
Don't make that the measure of success.
No.
You don't have to be the best. So do you guys play golf or watch golf?
Yeah, love golf.
You know who Kevin Kisner is?
No.
Kevin Kisner is a very mediocre guy. Mediocre. He's one of the best golfers in the world, right? But he's probably ranked like 75th in the world rankings, right? Which makes him better than 99.9999, right? So they're talking to Kisner, and they're playing they're playing Bethpage Black, which is a course in New York, a very long course, and he's not a very big hitter. They said, Kevin, when you show up here, do you even think you can win? He goes, no. He goes, I can't win on this golf. I can't win in this tournament. It's too long for me. They said, then why'd you show up? He goes, because 26th place plays pretty good. So don't lose sight of that, right? For every Tiger Woods, there's 180 other guys on tour making $2 million a year.
That's
right?
the truth. Yeah. No one looks at
Truth.
Yeah. So, yeah, gratitude's a big thing, right? Be grateful for whatever success you've had, and it's okay to be proud of yourself once in a while. Like, I know guys who burn themselves out because they're always dissatisfied. They're always worried about the next thing. Like, it's okay once in a while to go, man, we've done a pretty good job. This is pretty good.
I tell him all the time, we're just trying to keep the dream alive. Like
You're supposed to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have seen the statistics. Like 72% of all businesses fail in the first year or two. So get to year 3, pat yourself on the back. Get to year 10, you're elite. You're elite. You're 1%. Like, businesses that are truly like not inherited from your dad, or or you bought a business. But if you start something with your own idea and your own capital and your own sweat, and you get to that 10-year mark, you're beyond 1%.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, you have to be the biggest podcast in Los Angeles, or, there's a lot of guys that aren't Joe Rogan that are pretty comfortable, right? Like, you don't have to be Joe Rogan. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's true.
But there's this interesting perspective that social media provides, and that's why I think we're all trapped in it. Because it's like what you just said was such an eye opener to me, because all I do is scroll social media. All my friends, they own companies like I own, and they're in this market, that market, killing. I know the best guy in our industry. The best guy. He's 42 years old, but at 24, I'm looking at it like, well, why am I not working with those people? Why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? And it's this constant feeling of I'm not good enough. And I told this story the other day, but I'll tell it to you. Like, I traveled a lot for the company specifically because we had a lot of national clients. And there was a moment where somebody was like, how much money are you spending on travel? I think last year we spent like $70,000 to $80,000 on travel. Crazy amount of money. And they were like, what if, just crazy thought, you just serviced like people in Naples? You'd probably make a lot more money. You'd probably have a lot more, you probably have a lot more accessible cash flow. Like, you probably wouldn't be stressed out. You probably wouldn't be burnt out as much. And it was this idea of, I go, you know what I need to do? I need to make heaven on earth, because it wasn't the matter of there was an opportunity here. It's that I kept looking at everything else and telling myself why I needed to go to Fort Lauderdale, why I needed to go to these other places, because that's what I thought was the right move, because that's what I was just comparing myself to all these other people being successful in their own world. But I didn't even understand that building a reputation here is better than being, like you're saying, the 50th best guy in fucking Fort Lauderdale. Like, if you're the man in Naples, you are the man. You know what I mean? So it's honestly, it's so refreshing to hear that perspective.
One of the downsides of the internet, and specifically social media, is, you guys know the expression keeping up with the Joneses? It's that on steroids, right? Like, you used to not know what was out there. So all of this discontent comes from knowing that there's bigger and better things out there. Again, as recently as 10, 15, even 20 years ago, 20 years ago specifically, you were less aware of what your competitors were doing in these other markets. You didn't even think about, like, when I was building my business, I didn't know or care what people were doing in California or Florida or even the next like 2 towns over. Your focus was more narrow. If you get some of these real tight, some of these big dogs in Naples come in here, these guys are like their 60s and 70s. They'll talk about thinking about their market first, because they were unaware. Like, no one cared. No, again, that word unaware is important. Like, you were unaware of what was happening. So think about how much happier you would be if somehow I go like this and you were completely unaware of everyone else in your space. Right?
Save a lot of time.
Sure. And it's wasted time, man. Because the other thing too is everyone knows that social media personas are fake. right? So I guarantee 90% of the people that you're jealous of are broke, or I shouldn't say broke, aren't at the level that you perceive them to be, because that's part of their job, right? So be careful. Don't get in a race you can't win, right? If you're competing against something that's fake, well, how could you beat fake? Fake's always going to win, because fake could I can just make it up. Like, ask me how much money I have. I just lie. I have $1 billion, and then when you get $1 billion, I have $2 billion. If I'm okay being fake, then you'll never beat me, because we're not really competing.
Wow.
You're working hard, and I'm just going to say some bullshit. And I'm not mad at these people. It's part of the game. I'm sure you guys probably try to make your persona look as big. I get it, but just be mindful of that.
Well, it's funny because we literally just had a conversation about the fact that I right now don't play to that. And I always think that because I live in the world of, I help people grow their personal brand. So I call it the subtle art of flexing. I don't like people. I think flexing on social media is more, there's a higher value to the repetitiveness of something. So for instance, if you are going into a specific dinner place, posting that one time doesn't really do anything for people. Posting that every afternoon that you go, like, you know what I mean? There's levels to the game. And so I call it the subtle art of flexing. Now that I look at it specifically, that's part of the problem. But then again, we have to play the game. And for myself, I just don't play it at all, because I know the game. So I'll drive my Honda CRV. My girlfriend gets so pissed at me every fucking week. She's like, get a new car. Please, for God's sakes, get a new car. But there's a part of it that I understand. It's where it's like, I don't really care what the perceived look at from other people of how I'm doing, because I really care. And I tell him all the time, let's just survive. Let's just be around next year. Let's be around 2 years from now. Let's be around 3 years from now, because that's it. It wasn't until I started focusing on that and focusing on the product and focusing on how we made people feel, the services that we were offering, that I finally was like, that's the game, not what is your top line revenue, which is, it's just not, it's not easily accessible to most people.
Well, I'm a big believer in visualization. So it's not about the car you drive today. It's about the car you want to drive in 3 years, right? Different people have different ideas or thoughts on goal setting. I always thought 3 years was a perfect number, because it's close enough that it's real, but it's far enough away to give yourself a chance to accomplish those things, right? So a lot of people I know, do you guys know the term delayed gratification?
Yep.
Okay, nothing's more satisfying than delayed gratification, right? So you could go lease like a C-Class Mercedes tomorrow, right? And you'd feel better because it's nicer than your CRV. But by doing that, you're never going to be in an S-Class. So it's like, define your wins, right? Like, define your wins. Do you want short-term wins, right? Or do you want long-term gains? I'm sure you guys look like you work out, right? It's like, you know, you have to go every day, right? So resist that temptation.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is there's all this pressure. I'm so grateful that I'm not starting a business today in 2024, because for whatever reason, they've changed the rules on you guys. Like, you guys had this idea that you're supposed to have it all figured out at 26. And I didn't start my business till I was 26, right? So you're not supposed to, and you know, I still haven't figured out. Like, this idea that you're supposed to be successful, however you define success, whatever it's financial, personal, whatever, the idea that you're supposed to have it figured out at these ridiculously young ages is unrealistic. I mean, this isn't me saying it. Like, let's look back through, you know, I mean, Alexander the Great conquered the world by 25, but he's like a one. We still know his name, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're not, again, like, I think a lot of these success stories, you know, you hear the Zuckerberg stories, but like, I don't know, you can name these guys on two hands, and there's 7 billion people. So like,
Napoleon.
you can do the math, right? So divide 150 examples by the 11 billion people that have been on the planet since Napoleon. Well, it's a lot of zeros. It's 0.00000. So if you're going to make that your comparison point, you're going to be disappointed your whole life.
So then the question becomes, what is the price for greatness? Or is
it's retarded.
Yeah.
You're not going to be great. Like, get comfortable and pretty good. Like, I'm not going to drive to Port Royal and beat myself up. Like, I didn't have to be the best in my industry to have a really awesome life. right? Like, it's just retarded. Nobody cares. Work harder. No, a lot of people care. Your family cares. Like you're like this is ridiculous. These Grant Cardone types, they make me want to vomit. You know, like if you're not making $400,000 a year, you are a loser. That's not. Like, are you insane? Do you listen to yourself? And the good news is the Department of Labor provides statistics on this. Anytime you want to measure yourself, there's a big chart. See how much money you made last year. You'll find yourself somewhere on there, and you'll go, wow. You'll be surprised. Go, I made more money than most people on this list.
What was the average income? Didn't we talk about this recently? It was like 42,000 or something.
45,000.
25?
45.
45. Yeah.
Okay.
$45,000 a year is the average income, and
and also don't compare yourself to that guy
No.
because he's a loser too. Like the point is, don't compare yourself to
Sure.
everybody.
It's
I don't know if you guys are married or in relationships or at some point if you plan on it, right?
Fiance.
But that's how you measure your success, right? So I got married and had a family later in life, and when I look back on my life, that's my only regret. My only real regret is not having a family earlier, right? Because that's all that matters. Like this obsession with making money is dangerous. It's certainly contributing to, anxiety, depression. Like this is the worst adjusted generation of men in history. Like I feel for young men right now. None of you guys are getting laid. Like women have developed these retarded standards, Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen the data on this? Like the man women are looking for, the guy who's 6 feet tall, who
Like
makes
$1 million
$100,000 a year, who was never married, and has no. It's like 4% of the population. No, it's like it's super, but like again, it comes back to comparison, right? Because people use their mate as a point of comparison.
They
I'm
use
going to compare my mate. Yeah, it's
this.
very dangerous.
It's why I get so I love my work, and then there's days where I'm like, I hate my work because this is what we built. You know what I mean? Like people are going to hear this podcast, and they're going to feel. I actually think they're going to feel a lot better because I definitely feel a lot better because it's so unrealistic to want to build a life where you try to put yourself on the pedestal of like a Napoleon. I listen to a lot of these like biographies and it's funny because I see all the founders that are dead that have built great companies. It's a mixed bag on those ones that were just psycho obsessed, that their families hated them. They're like whether they got to the end of their life and their family hates them and they built this massive success and they were actually happy. So we see these things that have stood the test of time. But if you're building something and everybody else around you in your immediate life that actually matters hates you, was that thing even worth building?
I'll tell you a couple of things. One, watching those documentaries and stuff is retarded. Measuring yourself against these people is stupid.
Yeah.
You should find people in your community or network that are millionaires that make a couple $100,000 a year, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And find out how to be more like them. Because you're going to find out that goal is accessible. You'll find traits in that person you could probably see in yourself. Trying to compare yourself to Napoleon is kind of stupid, right? I would be Steve Jobs. Shut the fuck up. Like Steve Jobs, luckiest guy in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's unrealistic. Yeah.
again, like look at the price he paid. Like I don't know a lot about him. I watched one of the movies. Like his kid hated him, died alone. Like okay, this will sound corny. When you're trying to think of the things to measure yourself on, right? Everyone thinks, well, how much money I made. It's the only thing that matters, how much money I have, right? I think of the way my daughter measures me. Let me be better at the things that she is proud of me of. Like she's turning into a brat who knows what Lululemon is, so she is materialistic. But for the most part, like she doesn't even fully understand the concept of money, right? So the things that she likes about me are my kindness, my goofiness, my sense of humor, right? Like measure yourself by those things. Like be careful of whose standards you're measuring yourself on. And then you should only, this is easier said than done. I mean, it's easier said than done, but you should truly only measure yourself by the standards that the people that care about you the most measure you on. Because the people you're trying to measure yourself right now, other people in your industry don't give a fuck about you. So why do we spend time trying to compete with or be in the image of or meet a standard of people that not only don't like you and are actively rooting for you to fail? So somehow that's the person we want to mirror our enemy? No, like there are people in this world who love you dearly. And ask yourself, what are the things that they like about me the most? And how can I make those things? How can I be better at those things?
Hmm.
How can I be kinder, whatever, funnier, nicer?
We had a reading this late whether what your opinion on it is it isn't necessarily the point of it, but we had this lady come in. She's a intuition psychologist, and she like gave us all readings, and it was one of the most interesting points because she was looking at it from like an energy perspective. Whether you believe in that is beyond the
Frequency and
like frequency, but
yeah.
she was pointing out parts of me and Ryan that are the things that make me the happiest. And for me, it's creating. I love creating what we're doing right now. This is creating. This is my favorite thing to do of all time. And I built my company because I love creating. I built everything that I've done because I love creating, and it's where I feel like I'm giving the most back to the world. And yet I built a business, and I was comparing myself to people that don't believe that that's the thing, the reason why they're on the planet. So it's like, how can I compare myself to these people that are doing these things, building these businesses, when that's not what they're supposed to be doing in the first place? Like that, like my willingness to want to create is Ryan's willingness to want to be kind. Like that's what she read from him. I'm not saying that this is like whether we listen to that or not, it's just stuff that I know for a fact. That's what I love to do. He loves to be kind. So it's like, your message is funny enough. It's not the message that is out there enough, because this is the shit that people need to talk.
I told you a minute ago, if I could go like this, the greatest gift I could give any young person or anyone in the world is go like this and make you unaware of the rest of the world. And you start being much more grateful.
So it makes Naples a great place, because in this bubble, we don't really think about the majority of the world. It's just on your phone that you see.
Let that spill over into your professional life too.
Yeah.
And this will sound crazy and maybe maybe uninspirational, but I actually mean it to be inspirational. Like, and just compare yourself to a reasonable level of success. Like, make that your goal.
Yeah.
You know,
because then you can actually be proud of yourself when you get there.
It's still a lot of money, right? Like, you know, they're like make your goals like, let me have a family. You know, let me have some real legacy. You know, let me create some more people that care about me and do a good job turning those into productive humans. Like that should be goals, right? Like, the fuck you need $1 billion for? Like, you can't tell the difference. I don't want to sound immodest, right? But if you look at the car I drive and the place I go on vacation and the watch on my wrist, it's pretty hard to tell the difference between me and a billionaire.
True.
Yeah, there's a lot. And if you were to register my contentness meter or my happiness meter, it gets even harder to tell the difference. I eat where the fuck I want to eat. I drive what I want to drive. I live where I want to live. I do what I want to do, and I'm able to care and provide for the people I care about. Oh. So what do you need all the extra for? Right? Like, what is it? Like, that's ego. And ego is a dangerous, and I'm not knocking anybody who's had success organically. Like, I'm friends with a couple of guys who had those kind of zeros, and some of them are actually really nice people, right? But let it happen by accident. Like, again, if I won the fucking Powerball tomorrow, I'd keep the money. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm keeping it. And I will find ways to spend it. But I'm saying for right now, I'm not going to drive myself crazy because a guy I play golf with got 2 more zeros. Who gives a shit? You can't spend it, man. Unless you get a drug addiction or a gambling habit, you can't spend it. You ever looked at the numbers, trying to how hard it is to spend $1 billion? Like, you have to buy a Ferrari every day or something, like for 10 years. No, like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't be motivated, but like, and this is only my opinion, right? It's only my opinion. Everything has a price, you know, and that price isn't always dollars and cents. And another corny thing is that so I'm 46. I'm in that middle age where I'm starting to realize I'm not going to live forever. You know, I fell down steps last night and hurt my butt. Like, I'm doing old man stuff, right? I can't work out as hard as I used to. So I'm starting to become aware of my mortality, right? Is what I mean to say. And I can tell you, if you were to talk to any millionaire, billionaire, gajillionaire, whatever the case may be, when they're 60 or 70 years old, what they would trade monetarily to jump into your body or to go back to their body at 25 years old, it's everything. They would give everything. And again, would you guys take that deal? Would you go to 73 right now for 100 million?
Fuck no.
Of course
no.
not. So be mindful of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like what you have. So how interesting is that? What you have right now is worth $100 million. I could go find 10 dudes. I'd come back here in an hour. If we had some kind of cool machine, some like transporter machine, I'd get 10 guys in an hour and give you $100 million to become you guys. And that's fucking true.
They would do it in a heartbeat.
They do it like this.
Mm-hmm.
So you already have, in a manner of speaking, you have $100 million in your pocket.
The way this world works, no one would ever look at it from that perspective.
Because they're not going to care about their money. They're going to remember
Mhm.
things like they're going to see their fucking first kid be born again, watch
Mhm.
their kids take their steps, be loved again in a meaningful way, enjoy life,
Mhm.
Have friends.
move around. Just mobility, man. Like, so it's just gratitude. Like all these things we take for granted, like this, because we waste all of our time where things we don't have. Like, just do it tonight. It seems stupid, but get a piece of paper out and do your pro and con list. Like the pro list is fucking humongous.
Mhm.
But don't forget to put on the pro list things like I have excellent health.
Mm.
That's because it's the biggest pro in the world. Like that's you talk to these old rich guys. I'm not sure how what the profile of your guests are, but if you start getting heavier hitters that are further along in life, all they want to talk about is health. All these longevity clinics here, your Gary Brecka's, like, why do you think they're having a move? They're having a moment, man, because these guys are like, dude, I worked my whole fucking life to get down here. Now I can't play golf. And they would do anything. The reason I started going to like Helix and Liquivita, I've started this shit because I see, right? Like that's me learning a lesson from these guys. And they all say, and you guys think I'm old, they think I'm young. So I also said I didn't know how broke I was. I also didn't know how young I was till I moved here.
Yeah.
But all these old guys are like, dude, you don't realize, start doing it now. Start doing it now. Exercise, take the shots, get stretched, do yoga, do all this stuff. You don't want to be like me at 65. And I'm like, I thought I did want to be like you. They're like, no, you don't want to be like me.
That was last year before I ran we ran this company, and I'd met my first person that had, I guess they had eight figures in the bank. Like truly showed me a bank account, had that money in the bank. And it was the first, because I come from a not a poor household, just middle class, you know what I mean? Like we were happy, but my mom, single mom, worked her fucking ass off, did what she did. And I'd never seen what it was like to be at that level. And I spent 6-7 months just working for him. And he was fucking miserable. He was miserable.
But dude, there's the guy making minimum wage is miserable too. These are false comparisons. Like this is just an idiotic category of people.
Yep.
To group people or to make commentary about them based on one factor, their bank account, is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
But
Because
everyone
again, like
goes there.
I understand.
Everyone
I'm
goes
not being critical. I understand why you told that story.
Yeah.
People always tell those stories, but that's not why he's miserable.
No.
I know a guy that works at Walmart who's fucking miserable too, right? Like you're miserable because something's broken inside of you, and there's no amount of money to the positive or the negative that's going to fix that.
Or circumstance or anything.
Well, again, just like I know guys who are rich who grew up very poor. I know guys who are rich that grew up fucking rich. Like, start stripping that stuff down, man. Like these all this stuff we want to layer on people and put people in a box or a category. And I forget what book I read, but there was. It was, I'll probably butcher this analogy, but the guy said you go into a cancer ward and you start putting green socks on people that are getting chemotherapy. Well, you can start saying that wearing green socks cures cancer.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Wouldn't that be true? You could say
Whoa.
78% of the people I put green socks on recovered. It was the fucking chemotherapy, man.
Wow.
We measured the wrong things. So you looked at his bank
That's
account.
cool.
That's the green socks, right?
Holy shit.
Holy shit. That's right.
And but really it all boils down to that comparison being the thief of joy comment I made early on. Like, just stop with the comparison, stop with trying to think we understand other people, and why bother?
Why bother?
Right? Like, unless you really cared about this person, I don't know if you did or you didn't, like, who cares how much money? Did he give it to you other than your wage? That's what I always tell people too. Like, Nick Biaggi, my old business partner, my co-founder, BC Processing, Nick, shout out. His expression was, we would meet somebody impressive, or I'd tell a story. Because by the way, I was just like you guys. I was obsessed with rich people. I thought I'd be, so to be clear, I'm not better than you at all. I'm probably worse. But my old partner was very grounded, and this is definitely his expression. He would say, he ain't putting no meat on my sandwich. And that was his comeback to, hey, I met the president of XYZ. He goes, Fuck that guy. He put no meat on my sandwich.
Wow.
And that was, it was a funny comment, but it kind of, slowly it kind of stuck in my head. Like, what do I? You ever see a Bronx Tale? The movie A Bronx Tale?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love a Bronx.
Where the kid's like, I like Mickey Mantle. He's like,
Yep.
Mickey Mantle don't give a fuck about you. He's like, why do you care about Mickey Mantle? Like, billionaires have become like the star athletes of the 50s and 60s, right? We didn't know, like, we kind of created this idea of rich people being celebrities. It wasn't a big, it wasn't like a thing until pretty recently that like Forbes started keeping track of. That's like the 90s, I think, like when Forbes started putting the richest 400 people out. And for some reason, we started making people like, it became a defining characteristic.
Wow.
And it's stupid.
It is.
Like, where's the, where's the kindest people in America list? Like, can people put a list out like we can't name the biggest philanthropists other than seeing their names on buildings, right? Like, just be careful of how we're measuring people. Right? Like, whatever happened to just interesting and kind? Like, why can't that be like, why can't you tell me a story about, dude, I met the kindest guy ever 7 years ago. He was the kind, that should be the thing you brag about. Like, oh, you think you know somebody kind? I know. Because I'm sure you guys go, you think you met a rich guy? I met a guy richer than him. Well, who gives a fuck?
What's the context of their character?
I met a happy guy. I met the happiest guy you'll ever meet. Like, go home tonight and tell your friends, I met a really well-adjusted, happy guy today. I don't know exactly how much money he has, but he's in a really good mood. I'd like that to be my legacy.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is one of my favorite podcasts for that exact reason. We have so many conversations, and trust me, this is just the nature of who we are in the phase that we're in. And we're sitting here and we're like, give us the secrets, tell us the secrets. How do we, and it's the same shit. It's hard work, it's dedication, it's all those things, but
it's not, it's all luck. It's so much luck. It's so much luck. You know who works hard? The folks out in Immokalee right now that are picking our vegetables. Who works harder than them? So take your work harder stuff and just shove it up your ass. It's the biggest myth in the world. There are no new ideas, and you're not going to outwork you. I'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, congratulations. You're just going to be tired all day. It's luck. It's right place, right time. Now, listen, that being said, what it really is, it's making little tiny good decisions over and over and over again.
Habits.
It's not one thing. It's not like, I invented a podcast. I'm going to be interesting today. You can't do that. It's a bunch of little stupid stuff that seems insignificant at the time, but that's the only path to success. And then even if you do that, getting really lucky. So if that's a message, take it easy on yourself. Unfortunately, your fate is outside of your control to a certain extent. Now, I'm not saying don't work hard. Of course, more than work hard, be prepared. Because being prepared doesn't always mean working hard, but that's your minimum. I'm sure people talk about show up on time, like do all the things that don't cost anything, right? Like I'm a bad example because I showed up late, I'm unprepared, and I didn't dress nice. But the things like showing up on time, being prepared, like do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But don't these 14-hour days. Come on.
No.
Nobody's ever sat in their deathbed going, "Oh boy, I wish I spent more time on the Johnson account."
It's true.
Like, has anybody ever said that in the history of humanity?
Never.
Oh, did check my email?
Yeah, literally, no.
We're joking about this.
It's true, though. It is
but
true.
So many of these lessons. So I'll put a bow on this and bring it full circle. So like it was hard to move here, right? Because we had a family and a home and everything in New Jersey, and it's expensive to live here, right? Everyone knows that, right? But when my wife and I sat down, the old kitchen table conversation, what we said was, I don't want to wait till I'm 70 to go enjoy that lifestyle. And what I meant by that was playing golf, tennis, being outdoors. But apply that to every part of your life. Think when you're 70 years old, the parts you're going to look back on. You're not going to say things like, I wish I made more money. I wish I worked harder. You're going to say things like, I wish I spent more time with my family. That's all you're going to think about. Maybe, or I wish I'd gone to Machu Picchu, or I wish I'd seen the Eiffel Tower. Like, that's what you're going to say. You're not going to say, I wish I just grinded out 3 more guests on May 1st, 2024. You won't even remember this fucking day.
Yeah.
But if today's the day your daughter takes her first steps, you'll remember forever. And that didn't cost you a thing. And that's cliche, but it's fucking true, man. The important things, the real memories that you will hold close, don't cost $1.
This is the kind of content that people need to hear. Not the fake guru bullshit.
Yeah, take it easy on yourself, man. And don't give Cardone a fucking $1.
No. Well,
I just hired, went to his 10. I wanted to kill him. He went to the 10X thing a couple weeks ago. I mean, these guys are evil. They're
Yeah.
evil. They're modern day charlatans. Do you guys know what televangelists are?
Yep.
Remember that thing? Those guys that would talk about God and go on TV and take old people's money?
Yep.
Dude, these are modern day evangelists.
And you know what they're called? Internet marketers.
No, they're not. They're evil crooks, and the message they're sending is toxic, and it's not good, especially for young men. They're making all these young men feel inadequate, and it's very dangerous.
Well, it's all based on the psychology of if you feel a sense of lack, what are you going to do? Psychologically, I'm going to spend money to make sure that I don't feel that way.
And again, we've all done it, right? Like,
for sure.
but it's nothing to be proud of.
No.
You know, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So my advice is take it easy on yourself, fellas or girls. You know, folks, when you're out there, take it easy. It's you're doing pretty good.
Man.
This
Thank you so
incredible.
much.
Yeah.
Seriously, like
Wow.
I didn't know that this is what I needed
Yeah.
in this moment, but
this
like
is exactly what it was, though.
Well, and again, that's very satisfying for me. And guess what? It didn't cost me $1, right?
Yeah.
So, this is what I'll talk about today. I'll say how nice it was to meet you guys. I'll feel very grateful that you guys received a message that you found positive, and it didn't cost me a nickel.
and I can't wait.
And I'll even waive my appearance fee. So, it doesn't cost you guys anything either.
No, thank you so much. And I guess it's going to be a funny way to send it off. Where can people find you? If somebody wants to take this message and learn from
I didn't
you.
even talk about what I came here to talk about, by the way.
What you coming to talk about?
So what I'm most passionate about now is I started a nonprofit foundation called Ticks for Good, TIXFORGOOD.org. It's a platform that allows nonprofits to fundraise more creatively. So we create and curate really awesome big prizes, and then people make donations to their favorite nonprofit for a chance to win those prizes.
That's super cool.
You guys are golfers, you said, kind of, sort of?
Yeah.
So I've got 2 weekend passes to next year's Masters golf tournament. It's the hardest ticket to get in all of sports. So if you were to go on the site, ticksforgood.org, make a donation as small as $25, you'd be entered for a chance to win those passes to go to Augusta. I've got 2 tickets to a Taylor Swift concert in Miami. We're going to be giving away. We just gave away a trip to Disney, a 5-day, 4-night trip for a family of 4 to Disney. We're going to give away tickets to the Super Bowl. So the prizes exist as motivation to give people that little bit of encouragement. You're probably not going to win, but the chance that you might, and again, the fact that donations are as small as $25, we're trying to get young people, we're trying to get as many people as possible involved in philanthropy.
I love that.
I love it.
So that's what I'm most passionate about right now is identifying nonprofits, and cause fundraising's hard, right? Like it's the hardest part of being a nonprofit. They all need money. And we work specifically with very small nonprofits who may not have like full-time staff, a lot of volunteers, and putting on a fundraiser, a golf tournament or a gala, it's a lot of work, man. It's a big committee. It's hours and hours. With us, it's turnkey. We put you on the platform, that day you can start sending the link out via text or email or on your social media. And it's a way to get more people involved. So that's what I really came here to talk about, but that's okay. I plugged it. Ticksforgood.org.
There we go.
we got
Ticksforgood.org.
Go to the
We're
site.
gonna
There's 170 nonprofits on there. So you'll find one that speaks to animal charities, youth charities, cancer charities. You'll find something that communicates to you. Make the small donation, and you have a chance to win an awesome prize.
I'll say this just for our audience. Donate, screenshot it, send it to us. We're going to match our audience's donation to your nonprofit.
Fantastic.
So thank you so much for being on. I really,
Today wasn't free for you guys.
yeah, you got us. No, thank you so much. And please.
Also go go follow us. I'm sure Greg plugged the
Yes.
magazine. Check us out. Please come out. If this is a Naples audience, we'd love to see it. Some of our events. We have probably 4 to 6 events every month for the magazine. Anything else to plug? No, that's it.
One last plug. Like, subscribe. If you like the content today, there's going to be more of it. And I think I'm on a search to find more conversations like this because I kind of get worn out of the be great today. But thank you so much. Really
No problem, guys. Great being here. It's an awesome studio.
Yeah.